All right, so we're going to get started today. And I'm actually going to put the video on for a little bit for the people on the other end because they're going to need to see some of the things I'm showing you. So today what we're going to do is we're actually going to do kind of a lab, and you're going to be working somewhat independently through this. And I've got a couple things I have to show you first. All right? Once I show you those couple things, then you should be able to work fairly independently through everything. We're going to start with the translation. And so that's this one right here. And as we go through it, there's things that questions are going to ask you. They want you to see, you can think through some of the patterns and some things that are happening. And then we're going to come back together and we're going to actually discuss some of the things that you've discovered by working through some of these things. So we can kind of summarize what it is you learned about translations. And I'm going to add a little something to that. If you finish this, then you're going to get started on we'll get started on the next one, which is about reflections. We talked about all those things last time, but we're going to take them a little further this time and take it just like I said, one step or two steps further on some things, and hopefully help you to get a better understanding of maybe some of the things that got tossed out in terms of words, things like that last time as well. There is some vocabulary that you're going to come across, so hopefully everybody on the other end has copied this essential question down since it's been up for a while. You'll see these some of these vocabulary words come up. You don't necessarily have to copy them down right now, but we're going to have those. You're going to deal with those. We've talked about translation, reflection, isometry. We talked about some of those last week, transformation, but we didn't necessarily get full definitions. So if you come across a word as you're working through things today and you don't understand what it is, what do you think you might want to do? Should you avoid the word or should you do something with it? What do you think? What could you do if you don't know what the word means? Okay, and where could you find the dictionary? Online, okay. Good. So you get online, you can get in the K-12 system, or you could get just Google some of these terms. Make sure you find the math definitions of some of these because some of these have definitions that are not mathematical. All right? You want to find the math definitions of some of these. And some of these things will come up, actually, you'll kind of learn what it means by going through here. Okay? So make sure by the time you're done, that you have a good understanding of what some of these mean. Okay? And you're working as a team, so you're going to be working as a team. You're going to do your own work on your paper, but you're going to work as a team so you can help each other out. Okay? So if one of your team members knows some of these words, then you'll be able to do those. And if they don't know the words, then you're going to look them up. Then the computers are readily available, right? And maybe send one to look up the word while the rest of you kind of keep working on some stuff, and they can come back and share it, and you can share what you've been doing. All right? So I'll put this back up in a little bit. So like I said, we're going to do a lab today, and I'm going to review how to use the patty paper with you for this lab because there's a special way we're going to use it so that when you're doing your transformations that you can actually get things copied onto your paper fairly easily. And like I said, if you're not sure about a vocabulary word, look it up. And we're going to use these documents that were emailed for those on the other end. These are the ones that came, there's the exact ones you have in your hands here. And we'll kind of stop at a couple places, and by the end we're going to come back and we're going to share out as a team. Okay? What you've learned about translations. And if you get to reflections, then you're going to share what you've learned to that point about reflection. All right? So we're going to have to, so you're probably going to eventually, I'll kind of give you a warning, and it's just, I don't want a fancy poster or something like that, anything like that, just something quick. I'll give you the last few minutes to kind of put together, I'll give you some more so you can share, kind of create something on a poster, or I might even just have you kind of come up with take a section on the whiteboard or something and quickly write up what you've learned and then share out. All right? Make sense? Okay, so let me show you how to use the patty paper piece. So when you're doing the patty paper, for this, you'll see your, like a shape here, okay? And you don't need to use, like, you may not want to put the thing right in the center because there's going to be several different shapes. So if you put it off to the side, you can use the patty paper more than one time. Okay, and just take your pencil and trace over that shape. And make sure you get it nice and dark. Okay, so everybody should have the 2 packets and about 2 or 3 pieces of the patty paper. Okay, once you've traced about one side, and for those on the other side, if you have like some wax paper at home, just use your pencil on a piece of wax paper so you can do that. You put it on top of the little triangle in the translations piece and you copy over it with nice and darkly with pencil. Once you've done that, turn it over and go over the back side of it as well. Okay? So I'm just going to, now I can see it here. Here, let me turn the video on. Okay. So on this page, I traced the triangle here, and now I'm turning the paper over, and I'm going to trace over the top of it again. Okay, so trace over the top of it again, nice and dark. Okay, so what happens now is what was translation? What did we do when we translated? Yeah, we just split it, didn't we? Okay, so if we took this particular triangle and split it over, do it to someplace where the other triangle isn't, and just lay it on the paper. So now you've got pencil on both sides, right? So I'm going to take my pencil and go over the top of the direction of one side of it. And because I had markings on the other side, I can faintly see the triangle on there. And now I can go over that triangle and actually draw it in. Okay? Did everybody try that? So you can see that? It won't come out really dark, but you have the writing on both sides. You have writing on both sides of the patty paper for this exact same triangle. Then if you go, once you trace over the top of one of the sides, it'll actually come out very faintly on the other side, and then you can actually darken the line without the patty paper on it. Okay? I'll come right and help you with that tomorrow if you need some help with that. Does that make sense? Because I see a couple of kind of pencil cases. All right? So that's not necessarily what you're supposed to do for the warm-up, but I was trying to show you how you can use this to help you get pages from here onto your paper, because you're going to have to do that on the second page. Okay? Where it says something like this top one up here. You're going to have to draw that one on your patty paper, but then you're going to move it, but you have to somehow get it back onto your paper here. And that's how you do it. All right? And one other little hint, if you get to the reflections, make sure you lay, it's easier with the reflections if you lay the edge of this on that line of reflection. Remember, we have that line of reflection, we're going to flip it over. Lay the edge of this on the line of reflection when you copy it, and then flip it over on the line of reflection. That'll make it easier for you. Okay? Questions? Okay, so there's a lot of directions here. If you have a question about the directions, just let me know. But other than that, we're going to get started. And it tells you how to label things. Mathematically, we're supposed to label things and so on, and then we'll come back together in a little bit. All right? Questions? Okay, so on both ends, we're going to be working on these packets. Okay, so now that you're getting started on your end, I'm going to put the vocabulary words back up, but I'm also going to put you guys into a room where if you guys have questions for each other, you guys can work as a team about maybe how on some of the problems, and you can share out your answers and so on. Okay? Okay, we're going to come back together and kind of go back and finalize a couple things here and pull some ideas together. First of all, we went through this and you labeled the vertices SAW, and then you labeled the original one was SAW, the new one was S prime, A prime, W prime. I went around and was talking to you about some of that. Why do we label the new one S prime, A prime, W prime? With that little apostrophe. That apostrophe is important. Why is that important? How do? It shows the translation figure. Which one's the translation? That's how you distinguish between the translation and the original. So that little prime mark is really important. And the reason we keep the letters the same is so that you know which vertices match with which vertices and which sides match with which sides. That's really important. Okay? And you'll see that why that's important when you kind of get to the reflection piece. It says, describe steps that map the figure to its image. What did you do? On this one, what's another word for translation? You slid it, right. We're going to slide one figure onto to there. Do they appear congruent? What does congruent mean? Not similar, exactly the same. Yeah, that's kind of the generalized version of the whole thing, but we want one figure to be exactly the same as the other figure. In math, we call that being congruent. That means all their angles are the same, all their sides are the same, the corresponding sides and angles are exactly the same. Okay? Are the letters in the triangle and its image in the same order when read clockwise? When you labeled it, did you label them in the same order? You should have. So if the top point right here, okay. If that top point right there is going to be is going to be the same as the other point, and that's what we want. All right, and then the lower corner, the right angle corner, should have the same letter as the other right angle corner, and so on. And so if they're read in the same order, if they follow the same order, then your orientation is the same. That's where the orientation vocabulary word comes from. And the transformation is called a translation, which we knew from the whole thing. When you did this, it asked you to draw arrows. Once you did this a little bit and drew the arrows and labeled everything and got used to labeling everything correctly and that kind of stuff, we went to the next page. What were those arrows that you drew called? When you drew arrows on there, what were those arrows called? No. Vectors, yes. When you had when you started at the original one and you drew an arrow to the new one, the vertices, those are vectors. Okay, vectors are something with distance and direction. And you guys were looking at the direction and you checked to make sure that they were the same distance in one of the activities, didn't you? Okay, so that's very important on that. So when you're translating, you have a motion that has distance and it has direction. Okay? That's extremely important to know and understand. And if you can't, you need to be able to define that direction. Now, when you got here, you had some points that you started with. And those points you started with, we don't know what those are because there's no numbers on that, is there? Okay? So we can call those things. Let's say the point A. If you don't know what it is, we can call it XY. Okay, so it's point in the graph. Okay. How do we get to the next point? What does it say you're going to do? How do we get to the next point? If A is XY, how do we get to the next point? What does it say to do? gave you some numbers there. What did it do? So we're going to go over 2, which is which direction, which if we're on the coordinate plane, what's that? That's the, which axis? The x-axis, and then up 3 would be the, okay, if I'm going to the right, that would be positive. If I'm going up, that would be positive. So I can also label those points. That's +2, so that's probably 2, more positive, right? And y +3. So what else is this? And does this work for any of those points? Does that x +2, y +3 work for any points on that translation? If I called letter B xy, would that work? If I did letter C xy? Okay. So if I want to describe, this isn't in this piece, that's why we're coming back together. If I want to describe the movement in an algebra way, what happened, then I would write it the way I just wrote it. X +2, y +3. They name the points. Does that make sense? So in one of the things that mentions down here in number 7, it says translate it -1, -3. How would you write that one for number 7 for any point on that shape that you drew or that you're going to draw? How would I write that as a point on a grid or a coordinate plane? If this is my movement. X -1. 1. Okay. Okay, so it's another way to describe the points on the line. And actually, going to have to do this. There's some be able to do that with here. I have an online piece of it. Okay. The reason it is the little arrow things on the side is because it's telling you the direction for the point, how to get to the point in terms of movement. If I can use that to give me the name of the point for any point on that grid. And that's really brought up with this right here as you're doing that, right? I got a shape, and I got a new shape, but for every point that you put on there, it still had the same movement, didn't it? Okay? So, translation, there were some pieces here in number 6 that are really important. It says translation is isometry. Remember we talked last time about this isometry because the shape, all the parts of the shape are preserved. The lengths are all the same from the old one to the new one. The angles are all the same from the old one to the new one. All the points in that thing graph match from one shape to the next. There's nothing different about it. So this is telling you some characteristics of that, and I wanted you to look at that. Distance is preserved, so every point is going the same distance, right? And that's that vector thing also. Parallelism. If you look at the shape and the lines on the shape, if this line, is it parallel to this? Are these two lines still parallel? Are these two lines still parallel? And are they parallel to each other? Okay? If these lines aren't parallel to these lines, then we're in trouble. Okay? And the angle measures, are they preserved? And someone found out that we can kind of figure it out because of the slope of the line, right? The slope, if the slope of the line is the same, then it's going to have the same angle measured there. And the collinearity, that means that the point, like you have a couple points there in a straight line, right? They're in that line. And between this, the distance between the points is preserved. Okay? And you notice they gave you an opportunity to see that if I'm putting vectors on there, do I end up with a three-dimensional figure if I actually draw the vectors in, right? Okay? And gave you a chance to kind of practice that unique type of thing. All right? Yeah, if you didn't finish this, you need to finish it. Okay? Fantastic. Is there anything else that you guys found out that you want to add before you go? before you go, there's a lot. I gave the second one. Alright, so here's a second one. Guess what? What's it? Extra credit. Okay? And it's not going to be 10 points like the rest of it. It's going to be 20. Okay? So it's something that's going to be fun, but a challenge. Okay? It needs to have, I would say, suggest you guys you know, especially if you take the reviews to meet, because when you, like, here's one of your reflection on this, you want to make sure you get it right. Lay edit on the line of reflection. Okay? Then when you try to do without this, just verify that you're doing it, right? On the line of reflection, copy it, and then flip it over so you can see what you wrote. It's really wrapping. Okay? Don't do this to make the shape. Do it to check yourself. Does that make sense? So if you don't have more, you get a couple more to kind of do. You just tell yourself that. Or you can just like some plastic or home, or it's kind of a little waxy, so you use it with a pencil. And or if you have a container like this, you can use it or you can run on. Okay? Make sense? So, I think just everybody here would like to make credit, right? This is something fun, but it's not going to be due, and it's not going to be, it won't be due until the end of the minute, which is not going to break, so you can have okay? Any questions for me?
Well, I have a question for you, Proctor.
Okay. Any questions for you in order here? Does this have something to do with it? You just looking like this for good? Okay, hopefully we'll get into this. It's going to be a little more of a challenge. Okay? But you can just so they have some of the points on there so you can do this. That's how to do this game, guys. Make sure you don't eat the last thing for your extra stuff because make sure you take the spirit and extra stuff. You take them all and make them not please. Okay, and so I was telling everybody the other page is a packet is extra credit, so you finish that, it's 20 points of extra credit and something that's fun. So take some time to take care of that and get some extra credit.